Boards. Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over there, we are together with the wonderful person known as Janice Turner. Janice is a designer and self-publisher of two games that have come one after another. And Janice has made these two games about cooperation and survival in space. These are available from Wren Games, but today we're going to talk about agile ways to do your stuff in and what that means. And this will be coming at you from your screens. Board games and agile game development is what we're talking about. Board games and agile game development. I'm not going to shout hello. Hello, Janice. And hello, Sate. It is lovely to see you, who is super excited. This is the most excitement I've gotten out of Sate all year. Wow, thank you for all the emojis. This is amazing. And hello, Oliver.
Yeah. Hello.
I was actually going to say one of my recent highlights was listening to Oliver and Antoinette, because I do like their show. Have you listened to that Tabletop Games Inquisition?
Yes, I have. Not recently. I've not listened to really anything recently, but yes, I have a while ago.
And yeah, however long you can stay, it's all good. And Oliver says, congratulations again for going freelance.
Yeah, so I just started this month as a freelance product manager.
Ooh, nice. So what does that mean?
It's hard to describe. I tried the question after I tried to explain what a product manager is to
maybe we can go into that in a questionably quick questions.
My very quick answer is that I sit between the technical and the sales, and I translate between the two and make sure that both of them keep on topic and don't start going down rabbit holes. Yes, like a translator. So I can talk sales and business, and I can talk technical, and I make sure that they can understand each other. That's my short story.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And hello, Gavin, and hello, Alan. Yeah. It is lovely to see you. And let's move on and take a step back and say, yes, of course, I am Bez. We are blethering about board games, and whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, it is bath time. Because I'm not saying you have to take a bath. I'm not going to imply anything like that. But if you want to take a bath, you could. You have that power. Hopefully, I mean, maybe you don't have a bathtub, but I feel like I'm starting to discriminate against people who don't have a bathtub now. This is why I changed it from breakfast to bedtime. But yeah, you know what? Bath time can be in your hearts, even if you're not even actually having a bath. And coming up today, of course, we're talking about agile game design. But we need to start off, as always, by talking about a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant?
This is where I say it. Today, I was thinking about this morning, and I think it's the sound of rain on a noisy roof.
Aww.
Yeah. So yeah, I just love the sound. It just brings back nice memories of hearing pitter patter of rain on like a metal roof of a caravan from my childhood, and I love the sound of rain. I don't like rain. I like the sound of rain, so I prefer to be inside under a roof.
Okay, yeah, I got it. But you would like it to always be raining when you're indoors, selfishly.
Maybe. When I'm trying to sleep, it's a nice time to do it, when it doesn't really matter and you can just hear it going. The wind and rain together is also quite nice. I like that. It's quite soothing. So yeah, I think preferably at night time when I'm trying to sleep is the ideal time. Yeah.
I mean, when it's raining here, because of the way that the drain is, I don't hear the I hear the plop, plop.
No,
Nope.
that's
Yeah, that's like
annoying.
what happens when I'm trying to sleep and there's rain going on. It's not great. Yeah.
No,
And
it's the pitter patter, definitely the pitter patter.
yeah, one thing that I want to give a shout out to is the fact that in our kitchen, for those who haven't been, which is basically everyone, we have actual skylights. So it's like two big windows in the ceiling of our kitchen. And then you hear the rain, and even a gentle bit of drizzle can turn into something that sounds almost torrential because it's like a tent where you think, oh my God, what's going on? And then you go outside and it's like, oh, actually, it's not that bad. So sometimes it can turn you off going outside, which isn't great. But yeah, once you've adjusted, it's like, okay, I can sit here and enjoy it. And then you even like see the underneath of birds, which is quite unusual to see the underneath of birds or squirrels or stuff as they're walking along.
Yeah, but no, it's amazing how so little rain can make so much noise. But it's nice. It's a lovely sound, relaxing.
And good morning to Alex. And our next bit, we are going to be talking about, so feel free to share other thoughts about rain. And also in the chat, feel free to share any of your recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So I see that, Oliver's already been talking about a new style of unboxing video that they're really proud of. To which Sates would love to watch videos of someone boxing up games to send over.
Yeah, I wonder if I recorded me packing up games, if that would be just as nice to watch. I'm not sure it would, because I hate it. It's like, let's put the games in the box, let's grab all the bits, put them in. But unboxing games, much better.
Hello, Matthew. Lovely to see you. And this is the lovely Matthew Dunstan. But would you like to go first, or shall I quickly talk about my recent highlights?
Go for you. Go for it.
Okay, so I played 3 games, which I will be reviewing more thoroughly on Sunday. But we played Zombie Tsunami by Lucky Duck Games, Fruit Ninja by Lucky Duck Games, both of which are based on the apps. This is kind of a dexterity, card drafting, push your luck combination. This is a sometimes people are voting to say who goes into which groups, and your group needs to be big enough to pass an obstacle. And who do you mine? Because if you send a mine on someone, then they lose literally half their zombies, and zombies are points. You want to have the most zombies. It's zombies against everyone else. And then we also played this game, which is a weird Korean game that I traded for at Essen. I had no idea what it was. I just went over there and said, hey, this looks interesting. On the last day, as I was packing up, do you want to trade? And they said, okay. And then I traded it. It's about giving people cards, and they need to guess whether it's good or bad. And they either say, yes, please, or no, thanks. And so it's like Kakerlak and poker, but ish. Like you just need... But I'll talk about all of those on Sunday. Anyway, the point is, had lots of fun with Chris and McCall, played some good games, and that was the highlight of my yesterday. So how about you?
So we've started playing Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective with a group. So it started out just 3 of us, and we're up to 5 now. And it's got really popular, and it's working sort of 4 different households all together, and it's working really well. And thoroughly enjoyed it. I think we only got like 50 points or something out of the possible 100 that Sherlock got, but it's just a great way to spend an evening and have a chat and have some fun when you can't see everyone. And it's something that I think it's great to continue after sort of lockdown and coronavirus, because you can't always see everyone every month or every week. And we're now doing it on for the next 3 weeks. We've got the Jack the Ripper cases that we're going to be doing next, which I'm really looking forward to. But no, so yeah, we've got a new group of 5 of us that have been doing it, and it's fantastic.
So is that all adults, or are your kids helping out?
No, it's after the kids go to bed, so we have to tire them out during the day, and then no, it's a little bit too I think too much for them. So no, it's all adults. I was
thinking also
you and I and two of my friends and a sister, not my sister, one of their sisters.
Yeah, it can get. I mean, there's a question, of course, of violence in games and what's appropriate for kids, what's not. But I know that Oliver, going back to the reboxing, said yes, people would love to see that.
No, you wouldn't. I hate it. I hate doing it. You'll see me grumpy.
Maybe that's what everyone wants to see. Everyone just wants to see Janice having some, like, expressing their frustration, and everyone's like, ha ha ha, or getting to see Janice at the worst moments.
I always do it like just before I'm about to pick the kids up from school, because there's a post office on the way, so I've got a sack over my shoulder as I'm walking up to the shop, and I'm like rushing to get it all done. With Sammy, who has stuck airmail stickers everywhere in this room. She's found a pack of them, and they've just been stuck on all the furniture, on cushions, on bins, everything. But she won't stick them on the envelopes.
Okay, so marginally helpful at one point in the process.
Marginally, yeah. We should be kept busy.
Okay. And Xates says that they still need the assembly expansion and t-shirts, but they miss conventions very much. Gavin says they want a time-lapse style, and then you slow down and stop when your kittens or your children interrupt.
Well,
so basically what people want to hear is the interruptions.
I'm sure I could show you if it comes up. I'm not sure this will work well or not, but this was me trying to work yesterday. There's a cat on my lap and a child on my lap. That's working from home. Is a cat and a child. The cat is now on the sofa. Yep, she's over there.
And yes, I love Kakarlak and Poker a lot as well. I think both the original and Royale version, someone else giving shout out to Twitch Sings on Loserpalooza, that sounds brilliant. And Alex is saying they found the Jack the Ripper set a lot more challenging, both in theme and in difficulty.
Well, that would be good then. I don't know. We're starting it next Saturday. So it's the Jack Ripper 3 cases. We're starting on Saturday. So
I have to admit, I've only played one mission of Sherlock Holmes, which was one of the ones that Dave Neal was testing, and I just found it very hard. I mean, I just have no idea what to do here.
You have three physicists and an engineer playing, and I'm not sure what the other one, the sister does, which is embarrassing, but I've only met her twice. And she's new to games, but you have one of them that is like a mystery fanatic and like knows all the Sherlock cases from yourself. One simply because she recognised the case, which made it a little bit too easy. No, she recognised the case and I think it's this. It sounds very familiar, but we've got like this sort of mystery expert. I didn't
realise that some of the early cases were actually based on the books.
Yeah, it seems so.
Oh,
at least maybe they've changed it around a bit, but it was sufficiently recognisable that she knew the case and she was right. She got the right answer. We still did it to much like find the evidence rather than just going for it. But we play for fun rather than points. It's more fun to explore the story.
So now is the point where I invite everyone in the audience to ask any respectful questions to Janice about any topic, no matter how silly, as we enter the questionably quick questions. Now, the first question I usually ask is, where exactly are you in the world, and what time is it?
I am near Southampton in the UK, and it is 10:14 in the morning.
Okay.
And I'm sitting in what used to be a guest room and is now my study.
Xates wants to ask, would you prefer to spend a day as a shark or a pigeon?
A pigeon. I've seen them on my back garden. They just walk around all day, eating stuff off the grass and flying.
And that's the life that you would like to have?
I'd like to be able to fly.
So, what's the first game you remember playing?
The first one of my childhood would be CD Adventure, which is funnily enough exactly the same one that Stu, my husband, hubby, he also remembers. Has anyone heard of CD Adventure?
I've not heard of it.
I've got.
Tell us about this.
It's basically you move. It's kind of like a roll and move-ish, but when you land on certain squares, it says play track something of the CD, and you'll skip on your CD player all the way through to like track 46, and then you'd play it, and then it would give you some story, and it would tell you what would happen, and then you'd do whatever it said that was happening.
And then you have to stop the CD before it goes to track 47.
Exactly, yeah. And then you go around that. So I was an only child, so I'd play on my own. It was great fun. But yeah, so that's the earliest one I remember.
Alex asks, have you got other publishers around Southampton?
There are a few, yeah. There's at least 4 or 5 that I know of. I'm sure there are more than that, but yeah.
And how did you decide to start off publishing stuff?
I did it on maternity leave because I got bored. And I wanted to have a challenge and do something new and different. And I thought, well, it's with crowdfunding. If it's no good in the market, then it's not gonna go anywhere, and I've lost nothing other than some time and learning. And if it does, then I've got more learning, and I can create something that hopefully people will enjoy. So yeah, I did it because I got bored and I wanted to learn something new. Which is a very strange thing to do it, but that was the reasoning. And I guess also I realised I didn't really have a hobby anymore, that everything had kind of fizzled out, particularly with being sort of a mum at that point, and it was a way to give me something that was mine to do, that I could, again, share with you, but at the same time it was something that I could do that was as a hobby.
Now, Gavin wants to know about soup. Do you like soup?
I do, but I don't like pureed soup too much. I much prefer chunky soup.
Yeah.
So like a chicken and vegetable soup. My only exception is pea and ham, which I love. So that's the only sort of pureed soup. But no, yeah, I like sort of chicken and vegetable soups, nice chunky soups. Stews are even better. But yeah. So yes, I do, but I never find them filling enough. Is my problem.
I mean, yeah, for me, I wouldn't have soup as an entire meal. You talk about disappointments at the end of Mechs vs. Minions. What would you say is the most disappointing end moment you've ever had whilst playing a game?
Oh, the most disappointing. I think there's I don't know actually.
Maybe
Most being okay. That's fun. I think I need a bit more time because my memory is pretty crap now. It's awful. But I'm sure there's certain games that we've played and we've like really pumped and excited to play them. And then we play the first, actually, Pandemic Legacy Season 2. That's probably the most disappointing. We absolutely loved Season 1. Couldn't stop playing it. Season 2, we played the first game and it's sat on the shelf for 2 years now. We just didn't enjoy it. It just didn't seem to work well at 2 players.
Wow.
And yeah, I was so excited to get it. But yeah, I'm hoping maybe we'll go back to it one day, but really, no. That was
I've not started a proper campaign. I've played the prologue maybe 3 or 4 times with friends because some of the people that we were playing with really weren't gamers, so we were making sure that everyone understood the rules before we. But I actually really liked the basic game. What was it about it that disappointed you?
It was, as I said, it was specifically the Season 2 Legacy game, and it just felt too random, that you had no control at all over what you were doing, and you just couldn't influence the game. And it might have been worse because there was only 2 players rather than more. The very original Pandemic, we found that 2 players worked better if we each had a second character card, but not a second character pawn, so we kind of had 2 special abilities each. Pandemic Season 1 worked beautifully with 2 players, but Season 2 just felt too random. It was just like there was no control. But maybe as you opened it up, you got that control.
So
But we
Gavin
never.
asks if Stu makes stews.
No, wish he did. He's
Oh,
not so good. He's not so good at cooking, unfortunately. And I'm still hopeful. And yes, Wren Games is from Southampton, and Emma Studio.
oh, I didn't realise Emma was based there as well.
Yeah, there's a few others. I think Atkins Games as well. There's 2 other ladies. I can't remember what they're called around Southampton as well.
Do you mean is it Gamely Game? No, they're from Brighton.
No, I can't remember what they're called. I'm awful
Alex
with remembering
asks,
names.
would you rather make a presentation in a school assembly or visit an assembly plant?
Absolutely visit an assembly plant. It's much more fun. You know, the machinery, the things that are going on. I once visited a fruit and veg packing factory, and that was really cool. That was fantastic. That was fascinating. I was doing a project looking for holes in potatoes.
Looking for holes in potatoes?
Yes. Some customers complain if the black holes are too big in their potatoes, so I was looking to see if we could image them without non-destructively. But yeah, we got to go to a fruit and veg packing facility over in Kent and have a look around to see how it was all done. It's absolutely fascinating. Like the bananas are all kept in different these sealed areas with the gas in there to try and stop them going ripe. Yeah, it's fascinating. And also like the separation is like, well, yes, all the food comes here for all the Marks and Spencer's and Sainsbury's, and it all comes into the same place, gets distributed out and sent out again.
Have you ever been to board game manufacturing plants?
I haven't, no. That would be fun. I'd like to do that. Although it's probably just printing, although the printing would be pretty interesting to see. And that would be pretty cool.
Is Stu a co-designer or is it just you?
He works more, I guess, on the development side. So I come up with the basic idea and come up with the prototype, and then I sit down with Stu and we play it together, and he points out what the problems are, and then we try and solve it together. I then go away, test it, refine it, add new things in, and we sit down and play. So I'd say he's more on the developer side, but the games wouldn't be what they are without him. So he's a significant part, but definitely sort of the developer side.
And what would you say is one of your favourite conventions?
Favourite? I think I like Aircon. I like it. It has lots of free-from food, so I can eat properly while I'm there, which is fantastic. Got to feed your tummy. It's small enough and really nice and friendly. I think it's not the best one for sales, but it's the nicest one. I think it's definitely the nicest one. And as I said, me and the kids can eat there, which is even better. I don't have to plan a packed lunch in the morning and go and find a load of sandwiches and take a huge amount of food with me, because I know I can eat when I'm there, which is there's just a stress lift off this as well.
Aircon is really good for food, I think.
It is. It's fantastic. Now, we live off chips at UK Games Expo. Chips and crisps.
Yeah, when I'm at Expo, I stay in the Airbnb, not Airbnb, the youth hostel, close to the centre of town. And then I think it's maybe on the Thursday or the Wednesday, I normally buy a lot of cheese, and in the morning I quite often ask someone to, okay, on Saturday morning, can you go to the market, please, and just buy lots of fruits and stuff. Yeah. And then we have we've got to have a little theming, so we get all the red apples and all the tomatoes, but also bananas, because you can't have other colours of food. I don't just eat red food.
Yeah, that's my favourite.
And Oliver says they also love Aircon, but there's a bit of love for UK Games Expo just because it's geographically closer, which is
that does make it nicer. But yeah, it's just easier to get there.
Is your what would you say is your most financially business successful convention, if I may ask?
UK Games Expo, definitely. Yeah, that one we cover costs in the bit, and the other ones will be just about cover costs if we're lucky. So definitely UK Games Expo is the one. We haven't actually been to Essen yet, so I can't compare to that one. But I've done Dragon Meet, Super Game Expo, and Aircon, and Tabletop Gaming Live.
Yeah. That one was a bit quiet for the price.
Yeah, I'm lucky because we signed up pretty late, so I was able to negotiate a lower price. But had it been at full price, that would have been appalling. So I feel almost bad for everyone that did pay that, because it was just not worth it. It was charging way too much for what it was. But you live and learn.
Indeed. And as would the people behind the convention, maybe. And hopefully, if they are able to hold something in 2021 or 2022, then, there's a good chance that it will be better. And I would love, the idea of a convention that is done for the sake of turning a profit to actually be viable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so do you have, let's close up with the question that I ask people, which is, what is a typical day for you like recently, like in the past few weeks? What have you been up to, and how do you spend a typical working day?
It's been quite different the past couple of months. So I've changed jobs. So let's go for this week. So a typical morning is getting up, not wanting to get up, trying to get the kids to go into the shower while we have an extra sneaky half hour in bed so that they're already failing, getting up, pushing the kids through the shower, breaking up any fights, whilst getting ready, trying to get them actually to get dressed and stop playing. Eventually get downstairs and have some breakfast, at which point there's a mad panic because my alarm goes on my phone that says you should be leaving now. Stu takes Sammy to school, I take Sammy to forest school, drop them off, rush home, and then I normally start work. I used to start work about 9, I'm now starting about 9:30, 10. So yeah, sitting on that, I to get rid of any actions I've got, because I'm working with overseas development team that work in different time zones. So I get in, I cross off all the things that I need to do to actions for them so they can keep working. So it's about midday, mid-morning for them, I think. Then get on with whatever normal stuff I'm doing, interrupted by the cat, who then has realised that I'm home and insists to sit on my lap and suck a paw. At some point my tummy rumbles, have food, and then it kind of like repeats in the afternoon, exactly the morning, but in reverse. It's like then checking the actions off, then it gets to picking the kids up, then it gets the kids back through the shower after you get home from school, then it's trying to get them to get dressed, then it's like the snack time. So it's like this like pivot in the middle of the day, and then it gets to dinner time and then bedtime, which is a bit manic but far easier than getting up. They go to bed far better than they get up in the morning.
Well, I guess that's a relief.
At
least you've got one easy side.
Yeah, but no, we always eat together. We try to have home cooked food whenever possible. I've been lazy recently and doing chips and stuff, but I'm back to cooking again now, so that's good. My favourite of like paella, and I did biryani again, which I haven't done for years, and I love that. I make my own curry paste. And cook it all. It's
very
delicious.
Nice.
Yeah, can't stop eating that. But yeah, so that's a typical working day.
Dinner at the Turner household sounds good.
Yeah, I always cook extra, and I take it round to my parents, so they get a couple of meals a week as well.
And a quick hello to Nicholas. And just going to say that we are now going to move into the main topic, and feel free to comment, ask questions, like, and follow, and of course feel free to go and check out Janice at the website. But now we are talking about Agile game design. So let's start off. What is Agile design? Can you give us a wee bit of a definition?
So Agile is generally used when building software. So it's where I come across in my product management kind of role. And I've just been thinking how it potentially applies to game design, but also how game design could be benefit what we learn from that beneficial to product management. So Agile is a way of organizing things. It's quite fluffy is probably the way to do it. It's not like other processes where it's very specific and rigid. And a lot of it's focusing about, sorry, slipping down there. It's focusing on the people in the team, and also rather than following very strict processes. And it's just been something that's been mumbling in my mind about what could game designers learn from Agile, and then also in the reverse, what can product managers, Agile product managers learn from game designers. And so that's a very woolly description of it, but yeah, it's a methodology for project delivery, but it's a very people-oriented one.
I mean, is it worth maybe? I've just posted a link in the chat. Is it maybe worth going through the principles, and also at the top of the signatories, there's some priorities to kind of analyze what this means. So
the best one I think possibly is the manifesto, which is 4 key points. That's quite yeah. So if you go to
one on their website, which I think is about 12 paragraphs.
Yes, if you go to agilealliance.org and instead it has a much shorter version, which is probably easier for discussion. agilealliance.org, or just Agile Alliance, yeah. And then it's Agile 101. Agile 101 is what you want. And let's go from there. You want the manifesto.
Just a second. Okay. So
there you go. Much shorter. Fits all on the screen at once.
That's what it had on the manifesto up here on the original thing.
Oh yes, it's got it there as well.
So individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools.
Yeah, so that's sort of that's specifically talking about the design team, but I think it also, if you're thinking about it from a playtesting perspective, where the playtesters are part of the team, it's important to understand the individual and the interactions in the playtesting. And it also comes into the point, it's not about in a playtest following a very strict process, because you learn a lot by listening and watching what's going, and you're not going in there and say, hey, you got that rule wrong. It's about watching what happens if they get that rule wrong, why did they get that rule wrong, and so that's where I think it fits quite nicely. It's about seeing what happens and not being too rigid in your design process, and not saying I have to do it this way. And so like the tools could be almost the graphics. It's not about having complete graphics for playtesting, it's about having enough that you can playtest and get it out there and see how it's doing. So that's where I see the first one fitting. In terms of working software as a comprehensive documentation, that I see is in the rule writing aspect. For me, I think you've got to get your initial prototyping game working and not changing sufficiently before you write the rules. You then have to write them at that point. But if you write them at the beginning, you spend all your time editing the rules, and you'll spend as much time editing the rules as you will playtesting. So it's about doing it at the right time, and you need to do the right amount for the level of testing that you're doing.
But also, I guess it's suggesting that rather than write along documents of, okay, this is what kind of game I want to make, and pondering it too much, just getting stuck in.
Absolutely, yeah. And also about, what do you need to write everything in the rules, or can you just have some of the rules on the cards that tells people how to do it, rather than having it all listed in this perfectly complete rule book? Maybe you don't need it perfect, you just need to have the key bits in there and everything else is on the card. So which is, I'd be like commenting in code, which is the equivalent in that way. So yeah, it's definitely, I think you're right, it also would cover the getting something down and done rather than doing too much planning. Get something working. Next one, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. I think That was a little harder, but at the same time, that probably comes in with people worried about patents and trademarks and that side of things. Actually, you want to be talking to people, you want to be getting an audience, you want to be seeing how people react to it and how well they do, rather than worrying about all the legalities, because if you don't have a successful game, you never need to worry about the legalities. And it's generally patenting and trademarking is not necessary yet at the moment in this industry. So it's let's get it out to people and get feedback.
Mm.
And then responding to, sorry,
maybe we can slow down a tiny bit with these, because there's definitely
well, yeah, we can go back up.
But with customer collaboration, you know, originally, I guess this is saying that you want to work with your customers and not work business to business so much. So is this kind of almost making a point of, you know, maybe it's more important to test your game rather than pitching it?
No, not necessarily. I think because of customer collaboration, so if you're talking in an agile world, what you would normally do in the old waterfall method is that you would have a customer meeting at the beginning, at the kickoff of the project. You would have it at set milestones throughout it and then you deliver it. But in agile, the customer is part of the team. And so if your team is having a weekly meeting and a weekly update, the customer is part of that. And so it's about, that's, I think, more what it's about, rather than constantly going over the fine details. Hey, well, we meant to be delivering this milestone. No, what you do is you have them there the whole time and you're talking it through. And so in terms of playtesting, I think, it's about working with, not keeping it to yourself the whole time. It's about getting it out in the wild and getting feedback and getting information back on it, rather than just keeping it all to yourself and not letting anyone else see it. So that could be another way. So the customer can be a business, or it could be consumers.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's where I see that one going.
I mean, yeah, I feel like, just glancing at them, this is the one that, for me, takes the most, pondering what it actually means. Because, I see, but let's go for the last one, where it's basically, this is the crux of Agile, as I understand it, that it's meant to be you meet regularly and you respond to change and you just do stuff as best you can over following a plan.
Yeah, so they respond over very short time scales. So you do like 1 or 2 weeks normally, and you'll have a set amount of tasks that you're trying to do in there. But you wouldn't say like, Bez, you're doing this bit, Janice, you're doing this bit, Kate, you're doing this bit, Oliver, Gavin, you're doing these. Actually, what you do is you go in there and you take whatever works best for you, and then you do that part. So it could be sort of, it's a way to, if you've got a group of designers together, it's about working out what you're doing, but without saying, right, this is your role strictly and this is your role strictly. It's about working out what makes sense at that point in time and plays to the strengths of that person and helps meet the schedule that you're planning for. But it's also about not being too rigid, and just because you're going to do this way doesn't mean you have to. At the end of that 2-week period, you might find out that it's just not working. And just because it's not working, that's not a bad thing. Stop, change, do something different, do something new. And even if you've got your next sprint, as they're called, planned out, doesn't mean that you have to stick to that. You change it based on the information you have from your previous sprint, and you make it better. You just don't be scared to do something new. So that if you have a play test and you've got like a competitive game, and everyone comes back saying, hey, I think this would work a lot better cooperative, and that's a consistent feedback, you don't then go to do your next bit and just keep doing competitive. Maybe then you start exploring the cooperative version, for example, or vice versa. But yeah.
Going back to point 3, Alex mentions that for a game designer, the publisher would be the customer, because you're trying to sell or license the game to them after all. So when it's that customer collaboration over contract negotiation, Alex is suggesting that maybe the way we could take that approach is to collaborate with the publishers, and rather than getting stuck in the weeds with the contract.
Yeah, I guess that comes more perhaps once you've got your base contract established. I think this is more focusing on once the project exists. and you've got that initial stake in the sand. It's about going forward. And so it's about working with them to change. So it might be that you had planned to do it for 5 players, for example, and that's what you'd agreed in your contract. But actually, by working with the publisher, and you've come to the conclusion that doing it for 6 players or 4 players is better, then maybe that's what you should do, even though that says in your contract. Okay, you're going to have to potentially get that documented somewhere, but it might be written in an email or whatever else, or however you can deal with it. But it's not being stuck. But because it says it must be 5 players in the contract, that it must be 5 players at the end, because over the scope of it, it might just be down to parts count. You can get it down to a lower cost point, which to increase your market at 4 players, then you do it at 4 players. And so I think that's kind of where it is with the publisher. It'd be about being flexible and talk to them and not being too rigid based on what's initially agreed. And you should be doing what's right rather than what's written. And you're going to have to do some sort of contractual stuff later, but at the same time, that shouldn't prohibit you from doing what's right.
And of course, the manifesto does say, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. So it's not saying that there's no value in negotiation, because let's be honest, if someone's not offering you the best percentage, you do want to negotiate that. But it's just saying that, that collaboration is even more important, so don't sacrifice it.
Yeah. And as I said, it's just like the going from 5 players to 4 players. You're going to have to at some point get it agreed, perhaps written, that that's what you're doing. But that doesn't mean that you can't pursue doing that now. Assuming you've got a good trusting relationship with them. So that's about it. The customer collaboration is about having a good trusting relationship, that you can work together, that you trust each other, that you can create a good product together.
Is it worth maybe going back to the principles, although it is a bit longer, reading that out, and so to get a sense of what the original authors were kind of thinking behind the manifesto?
Yeah. So the principles are harder to align, but some of them align very well.
So our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software.
So that's about getting prototypes out quickly and not just having it in your head. So I think that's about getting playtesting early, getting it onto the table, and getting it in front of other people. How I would parallel that one.
100%. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. What does this actually mean, the customer's competitive advantage?
Customer's competitive advantage is something that will make them stand out, and therefore their product to perhaps do better. So in a game, it could, as I say, it could go down to player count, that you might be doing a game that is 3 players, but with 4 players will do better in the market. And it might be you're 80% developed, but you have a brainwave on how at this point now to get it up to 4 players. So the 4 players will increase competitive advantage, because you'll be able to compete and have a larger market, and you'll be able to compete better with other games.
And you're really seeing the customer as the publisher rather than the player?
They're both customers. It depends. I would say probably when you're developing something, it depends. It's going to be variable between the two, because you have the publisher is your customer and the consumer is the publisher's customer, or they're basically the gamers are the publisher's customer. But ultimately, the end customer are the gamers, and your customer is a publisher. And so some of them will apply direct to the publisher, and some of them might apply to gamers.
Just when it speaks of the customer's competitive advantage, the way I read that, it's as if the customer is a business person trying
that's
to
a publisher
doing something in the and so it's ultimately what we're saying is that we want to embrace change and not be afraid of making last-minute changes, even if it's from the first edition of the game to the second edition of the game, just to make it the best game it can be.
Yeah, so I think that's it. It's about working together as a team, valuing the interactions, developing stuff early and repeatedly, and not being scared to change things.
And Gavin, going back to the first point, says, can you pay too much attention to playtesters though? as people like different types of games, there's a danger of bouncing around as different folks test the game.
That comes with quantity and experience, I think. If you're only playtesting with a couple of people, then you are at risk of designing a game for them. If you're designing it and you're doing lots of different playtesters and you're getting consistent feedback across the whole group, it might only be one in each group, but you're getting a consistent feedback from multiple people, then it's probably worth listening to. If it's just one person, you're going to have to make a judgment call. And that judgment call could be, well, let's ask other people directly about it. Because it might be that they just were too scared or didn't want to say it. So you've got two ways. You can implement it and test it that way. You can just ask verbally about it, or you can just make a judgment call and say, hey, I don't think this is, because it might not align with your principles and stuff.
And for sure, the other thing that occurs to me is knowing who your customers are. So when you've got playtesters, knowing that, hey, if I'm making Yogi Junior, I'm not going to ask Sate to playtest it. I'm not going to say, hey, can you try this game and tell me what you think? Because Sate's just going to hate it. I mean, that doesn't mean it's a bad game. Do you know what I mean?
No, but sometimes you get really useful feedback from someone that hates a game, which might sound strange because you're going to get unfiltered feedback and they may see the things that other people don't because they like it more. But it's very much about how you filter that feedback and how you use that feedback. And ultimately, it's your decision what you do with it. And it's a journey of learning.
And Gavin has a question of, when we're talking about making changes and making those changes late in development, how hard is it to let go if playtesting finds that are not working?
I think it depends how far they're in the development process. So that it depends, and also if I've got another idea. If I've got another idea, it's relatively easy to let go because I can then switch to something else. So the current game that I'm developing, I've tried to develop it before and it just didn't work. But I sat down and started the game, and it's just there's this core mechanic that I really like and want to improve in the game. The rest of it is fluff, but there was this core mechanic that I really like, and I've designed a completely different game around it now, and I'm much happier with it. So I was trying to keep it to its origin of a competitive game, and the competitive bit works, but I think I don't need to change that very much from where its origin. But the cooperative one is a complete change, and it works a lot better now. And yeah, it took me maybe a week to drop something that I really liked in it, but once I dropped it and I tried something new, it worked beautifully, and it was like easy. Why on earth didn't I do this sooner, kind of thing? So it takes a bit of time, but I think it's about trying, and about it's when you have the new idea and something to progress with is when actually it's easier to drop it. If you've got nothing to move to, it's very hard to drop it. I mean, I've got lots of ideas in a box up there, which are half developed that I think they have something, but then not there yet. I still have one in my mind that I want to put dystopian dice that I've got a really interesting mechanic, but I don't know how to implement it yet, so it's shelved. And often when you drop an idea, you don't have to drop all of it. There's often a nugget in there that you can take forward, and that makes it a lot easier to take forward.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's just that nugget, and then it's not dead. It's just changed. It's just different.
And I mean, within a single game, like a recent Ludology podcast, which I would absolutely recommend, Gilhova's talking about their auction mechanism, which they kept having to cut out of this series of games. And this is a mechanism which seems like a lovely mechanism, but hey, cutting it out made Battle Merchants a better game, and then it made the Tele one, the Networks a better game, and then it made High Rise a better game. And making that decision to cut something out, like with Kitty Cataclysm, I had a system of marked cards where you kind of knew that the marked cards was generally more powerful, but not always. So it was kind of this cat and mouse game of following it around and being sure to steal it from the person to your right, and then when it got back round to the person on your right, then they would steal it from you. But whilst there's an interesting game idea there, making all the cards more traditional with just one sort of back did actually turn it into a better game. And so, yeah, for sure, you need to be willing to make those changes, whether it's cutting out an entire idea, but even within one project, saying, okay, what's his best thing? And yeah, sure, that's a visual. And good morning, Paul. It's
Morning.
lovely to see you. Yeah, there's always gold, and that's something. But yeah, if we carry on, so deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. So this is all about iteration, right?
Yeah, this is all about getting the game to the gable and keep iterating it, keep changing it, keep doing it, and rather than pondering it in your head, get it down on paper and test it. That's pretty much what it is. And the testing it is developing it, which in software is writing the code, and then in a game it's about creating the components and trying them out, whether that be a scribble on a bit of paper or something more. But it's about doing something regularly and getting it down and done, rather than planning everything to the nth degree first.
I mean, I would say that writing code is a lot harder than changing something on a bit of paper. And so, you know, people in the software world even talk about paper prototyping. So for that reason, I would even say, rather than saying a couple of weeks to a couple of months, if this is your full-time job, I would say, you know, you should like even go as low as a couple of minutes or an hour to get, you know, the next version of the game up. Just like make some drastic changes, and you know, it's in the middle of the game. Just say, hey, I've got this idea, and literally within a couple of seconds, just say, okay, you know what, this version of the game isn't working. Let's abandon it. Let's start with these brand new rules that I've only just thought of. Why not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with the game development, you're right. You're probably going to be doing shorter timescales, because with software, you're going to have, like, you're trying to do, I don't know, 8 features over 2 weeks, which you're putting in and trying to get it work. But in a game development, you're likely to be iterating. It might be that you're trying to work on a single feature at a time, which could then be an iteration of a couple of days as you're trying it, and you're iterating that single feature to get it done. So yeah, I agree. Game development probably is even faster.
Oliver asks, how do you keep track of all the changes? Do you keep versions of your game designs? And personally, I've got some very old versions of cards, of Kitty Cataclysm, or the game that used to be called In a Bind, but before that was called Redonkulous, before it was even published by me. But anyway, like, I keep some paper prototypes, but I don't work hard to keep track of these changes, because frankly, it's not always relevant. By the time that I'm on version 26, version 5, you know, I don't feel there's much relevancy in being able to scour for all those notes. How do you feel about this, Janice?
I keep track of it more from a memory perspective. So this is my book where I keep track of everything. And if I'm playtesting something very specific, I will keep track of the setup and keep track of, like, wins and losses based on that. And I write it all down in my book of what factor I'm changing, because I tend to do very finely tuned games, and I need to know what one card difference will make, and playing it multiple times. So I kind of need to get those, but I keep major, it'd be like major software releases of the prototype. I've got my handwritten initial one, which tends to go in the bin. Then I have my next handwritten one, which is a little bit nicer, more formed, whereas the first one is literally just complete scribbles and let's just see if something works. That one I tend to keep. Then I will do my next major release is my one where I've designed some basic graphics, printed onto paper and into sleeves. I normally keep that one, and then after that it tends to go, it's a reviewer level prototype. So I normally keep not the first one each of the next ones, and I write down the changes. Generally, because the games are very quick, unless there's something seriously broken, I tend to finish the game, so I write down my proposed changes. I don't generally look back at them other than for the next game when I implement those changes. So yeah, I write them down, but not as a necessary something to look back on, more as a memory end, unless I'm fine-tuning.
Yeah, so you've kind of gone into this a wee bit of how you usually physically prototype with the
I actually have one on
printing
my
and the
desk.
sliding into cards. There you go.
Here's my prototype, my wonderful drawing. I have meet Mary and John. They are characters. I also have been using this one, just a pack of cards, plain cards, and just been drawing on them. Very cheap and easy way of doing it. And then I have stolen some paper from my daughter and created a board. So this is a prototype that I'm now just starting to do a bit more of the graphics on. I'm happy that it works on a co-op level on 2 to 4 players. I'm still working on the 1 player, and I did have it working for competitive, but I've changed it a lot, so I need to go back and check competitive again. But so yeah, that's my stage 2 prototype.
And hello, J Guard. It's lovely to have you. And yeah, Idol Michael. As it sounds very familiar, and this is 4+, which is a very simple game, so the graphics are not going to be that far away from this, to be honest. So this is the back, and this is the front of the cards. And whereas this is a lot more further along, even though it looks almost exactly the same. So like this is the backs, and so now you can, and this is the fronts of the cards where these are actually printed. And so everything is totally consistent and regular. But I think, I don't know, that's a weird game because it just required really simple stuff. And like for me, even when I was showing off the Wibble++ deck at UK Games Expo, after it had even been kickstarted, it was still just hand-drawn. I don't tend to print stuff until very late in the process, but that's just me, and everyone works differently.
I have a slight issue. It's Stu likes things to look nice, and they get better feedback when it looks nice. But the game sort of develops a bit more. He's very much into like minis and things looking nice. So he hates the handwritten prototype stage. So I probably do it a little earlier, but I don't do it until I'm sort of 80% of the way there and things are not changing so much anymore.
And so, oh yeah, I thought there was a...
There was one about me doing a competitive game, but yeah.
Oliver asks if you focus on the specific parts of the game before focusing on the general thing. I mean, personally, I would try to just... I don't do very strategic games. My games are simple enough that even with Seize the Power, which has quite a bit to it, and, you know, you'd be hard pushed to get the game finished if it's 5 players in less than 90 minutes. But, yeah, I would kind of just play it and play everything and just say, okay, how's it going? Where's the fun? But then for sure, my focus might shift to one part. Okay, let's think about the auction a wee bit. But I think you've always got to be aware of every part, like both the entirety and the bits that you're working on testing at that particular moment. I wouldn't change everything, but even if I'm testing the auction mechanism within this game, I'm still thinking about how that auction works within the context of everything bigger around it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so I think it's the same. I will have an outline of a bunch of things that I do all together, and then I'll focus on what I feel doesn't work, and then whatever doesn't work is going to be my focus, but you can't take it in isolation. It has to be done, what's the impact on the rest of the game? But yeah, I'll have playtesting sessions where I'm focused on a specific thing to try and get that right, but it has to be as a whole, and then checking the different player counts and that side of things as well.
So we've talked about quick iteration, and business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. I mean, this feels quite unrealistic for most people in the board game industry, but how would
Yeah.
you?
That would be, I think that's basically saying keep talking to each other. If you're working on a game, that don't just do it in isolation. So it's like when each time I iterate a bit with Stu, I then talk. I'm like iterating on my own, and then I always talk to Stu. I don't just iterate, and just do it for me. I always get that outside in. So yeah, I think it's probably because it's often done in spare time. It's just about keeping those communications open and don't just do it in isolation.
And I guess, yeah, being mindful of the component counts and maybe even from your own perspective, being aware of what's going on. Don't have big, expensive to produce components if that increase in RRP isn't going to also have an increase in like fun value and like something that feels meaningful. Like if there's a £30 game and then it feels like, well, what's the point in this? You've got to be mindful of it as a product, I guess.
Yeah, it's also sort of, if it's a 10-minute game and you fill it full of minis, then yeah, you're just increasing the price point for something that might not be considered of high value.
Oh, Xate says, imagine the L deck with minis. So like every double letter, instead of being on the cards, it's a different miniature.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're all gold. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, you've got to be really mindful, and sometimes you've got a lot of development beforehand to get to the product. But yeah, it all depends. I put my engineering, everything is, it depends. It's a brilliant answer.
I love this bit where it's building the projects around motivated individuals, giving them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the work done. I mean, obviously, this whole agile mindset, it is about railing against, in the history, it talks about the Dilbert-esque corporate structure, which there isn't as much of that in board games. I mean, there could be an argument that it's even could be a little bit more corporate for a lot of us, that there's maybe people who aren't as organized as we could be. But I think the key point here is that if someone's actually doing the stuff, you've got to trust them and empower them. And if you're a boss, it's not just about micromanaging, it's about saying, hey, do it and do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that, the self-organizing teams, which is the whole part of it. It's about not saying, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. It's about, okay, this is the outcome we want. Go and do it. And you have to trust your team. You have to have a competent team that you trust. And that it's about the team delivering together as a unit rather than individuals trying to do more. So it might be that one person is not outputting a huge amount in a certain sprint, but someone else is outputting a lot. It's not about those individuals, it's about the team as a whole. And if the whole team as a whole is outputting the same level as before, because the idea is about consistency of delivery, you shouldn't worry about what the individual, because maybe they were just tackling a really hard problem and someone else was tackling lots of easy ones. As long as you are still delivering 20 points that week or whatever point system you're using, it doesn't matter about one person being slower than another, because it's all about the team working together to do their jobs, to deliver. And you shouldn't, it's also like about focusing on what you're producing, the outputs, rather than a time sitting at a desk, because you might be having stuff going round in your head as you go on a walk, which gives you that brainwave to come back and then do a flurry of work. But if you sat at your desk, you may never have got to that flurry of work. So it's about output rather than hours as another consideration that's often going around at the moment. I don't think that's explicitly agile, but I think it resonates with this point as well.
And I think that the topic of motivation is really interesting. And people have to be motivated to build this thing. And if you're motivated, you're going to do the work on your own. And Oliver talks about motivation of playtesters, and does Michael, which, yeah, like if there's another designer that you want to playtest your game, then obviously reciprocation, as we have in Playtest UK is a wonderful thing where,
I think the key thing is listening, and actually listening to the feedback that they give, that they feel that they're making a difference and you're not just writing it down and chucking it in the bin. So I think having valid conversations with people about concerns or things that they like, and taking it on board is a way, would help with motivation, because then at least they feel that they're making a difference. They are actually helping in the process rather than just going through some robotic mechanisms. It's that they're actually part of the process as opposed to being outside the process. So yeah, I think it's about engagement, listening, taking on board what they're saying, and valid conversations. And if someone doesn't want to play test or game, then they're probably not the right play tester.
I mean, to some degree, like this building of a supportive environment, and why does someone want to do it? What is motivating them? And just it's what allows you to do that. Because I know that you had a lot of success with online playtesting, getting people who are independently just eager to help you. And if there's a game that, hey, I've got this vision for a game that it's such and such, then maybe people are excited to do it for the sake of the game.
Yeah.
And
I think playtesters are also just recognising them. The impact, so that anyone who playtests always get their name mentioned in the rule books, as a sort of, at least as a thank you and recognition that they helped along the way. And pizza, wow, yeah, I'm sure pizza could be arranged. We only have dairy-free, gluten-free pizza in this house, though, so or homemade pizza. So an interesting pizza there.
So Sate says they have playtested for lots of companies and only felt it was worth their time for 2 of them. That's quite sad to hear. Janice, of course, being one of those 2. But yeah, I think that this notion of why you felt it was worth the time, I mean, this is a really interesting topic, and it would be interesting to have you up here sometime, say, to talk about that, and maybe a group discussion about how to support people. And because for me it is about making sure that people feel valued, but also what are you presenting to them? Like if I go to the pub, or if because a lot of In a Bind, back before it was Yogi, was tested in pubs and in Parliament Square, you know, going around on a sunny day and kind of saying, hey, would you like to try this? And hey, would you like to try this game? It's really easy, and seeing what people thought of it. I mean, most of the playtesting was done with other designers. And yeah, Gavin says, are other designers good playtesters, or do they find it hard not to redesign the game? And I think that's got to be partially down to you. If someone's starting to change too much, you've got to say, hey, wait, that's maybe out with my vision, or at least present what your vision is. If I say this is going to be a really simple game, and it's about contorting your body and having a bit of a giggle, and then someone starts adding Euro elements to it, well, maybe that's a different game, but it's not this game. And so you've got to be clear with your focus. How do you feel about this?
I think it depends, because you can have, you've got to get your playtesters right, because you've got to understand who your target market is. So if I was playtesting Assembly with someone who designs deep strategy games, they will probably want to try and make it much deeper and harder than it is, whereas we wanted it to have enough strategy, but also to be quick. And so I think you've got to take on, if someone designs a game very similar to yours, their feedback is going to probably be a lot more valid and useful than that someone that designed something that's completely different. So it really depends, I think, the designer, what sort of games they design, and also what sort of games they play, because they might play games very similar to what you're designing, and then again their feedback. So it's all about making a judgment on the value of the feedback you're getting. But if they're trying to redesign and change everything, test those out. As I said, it's just like talking to other people. What do you think this will change? And just ask those questions in other groups just to rule them out. It doesn't mean that they should necessarily be ignored. but it doesn't mean you have to do it either. But yeah, I guess designers are probably more likely to be vocal in terms of feedback than people that have not necessarily done any playtesting before or are not designers. So yeah, you probably have a lot more sifting to do with designers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's put that to the side for the moment and carry on, because giving people support and love and making sure, like, delving into why are people motivated, like if for example, my mind links to Chris, who's coming over every Wednesday to help me on my games. And is Chris financially motivated? Sure, because I pay Chris, but parts of that says, okay, what does Chris enjoy doing? Like Chris really does some great photography for the LDEC, which you should all follow on Twitter, because that's as close as you're going to get to being able to talk to Chris on Twitter. And so, but it was like just these amazing photos. And I said, you know what, just spend this day. I want you to basically line up a few months of content of photos for Categorical, and having, okay, let's kind of keeping someone informed enough, like there's a whole extra topic. I feel like that would be a whole other day's almost thing, if that's okay. So let's talk about the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation.
So this is an interesting one with COVID now, because everyone's learning different ways of working. And so can face-to-face conversation be like this over video calls? Or does it have to be physically in person? I think you can pick up a lot more in body language when people are in the room and you're watching them play, because it's not necessarily about what is said, it's more about what is done and how people react. And so it's not just about the feedback from the end. If you're not there, you miss that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can't always do it. And I think one playtester actually just videoed himself playtesting and sent it to me, and that was actually hugely useful. So I think actually seeing it is definitely something that is very valuable, but it's not something that we can always do, particularly in current circumstances. So it's definitely the most efficient and effective, but it's not always available.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I would also say that, yes, testing online is really valuable, and it's not sure. I think that this sort of chatting, and I've really enjoyed, having people on like yourself, and I really appreciate this conversation. And for me, actually, this conversation with the side chat of people on Twitch is such a great format. And I almost feel like this is better in some ways than a traditional. There's definitely advantages to it, because people can be typing up stuff and it doesn't distract from our conversation, and I can quickly go and scan through. If I'm able to multitask, I'm going to admit that might lower my ability to maybe instead of being at 100% peak efficiency of taking in what you say, I'm 80%. But there's advantages to it. But when it comes to playtesting, you want to be able to look around the table and see if people are laughing, see if people are smiling. And there are for sure certain games that there's just no point in testing. I am not going to bother testing, Yogi Jr., hypothetically. I am not working on it right now. It's just not something that I'm going to even bother doing. Unless I'm actually able to see the people.
Yeah, no, I think it very much depends on the game as well. If it's very much a social game, it's going to be, unless you are designing it for online, it's not really going to work. So again, it's that it depends thing. But overall, if you can do it face to face, it is going to be the best way. It's just with 2 kids, I find that pretty difficult at the moment. So that's my biggest weakness, I think, actually, and that's where the cons really come in, is where I actually get that chance to do it. But yeah, like most of the games that have been done remotely with limited in-person testing, But I think you need a mixture works.
I mean, this is definitely an interesting line, especially in today's context of COVID and everything.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're all learning new ways of doing it now, and something that was considered inefficient before is becoming more efficient. And I think, as with video, you still have that face-to-face, even if it isn't in person.
I mean, bear in mind that this is something that started in 2002, and so back then there wasn't maybe all the video software that we have today.
Yeah, I mean, I've just joined a startup which has no office, that has people in Greece, India, Singapore, and the UK. There's no way for us to have those in-person conversations, but we're still working together as a team. And the Middle East as well.
Let's talk about this, which I think that we will all agree with. Working software is the primary measure of focus. I mean, when we're talking about board games, if you don't have a working game, you know, it's all well and good theory crafting it, but unless you actually are playing the game and able to play it, it's not really a sure thing.
Yeah, that's all about what I said earlier about the planning, isn't it? Yeah, the planning is to get to the testing and do some planning, but don't spend all your time planning.
Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsored developers and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely.
Sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, I'm not even quite clear what this means, because when it says a constant pace indefinitely, I would have thought that once you've reached a certain point, you've finished making that thing, so it's done.
Software's never done. Games, that's where I guess the same games and software and waterfall often have a difference. Is that a waterfall is you have delivery, it goes out the door and it's fixed. Whereas software, you often have that continuous development. You have your release 1, then you have your release 2, then you have your release 2.1, because you're fixing all those bugs. And this is talking about having a team, and it's about the total output of the team within a sprint, which is generally a 2-week period. And if that sprint they're meant to be doing 200 points, they deliver 200 points, and each point is worth X amount of time on the developer team. And every week, the idea is that you deliver 200 points within it. And some people might be delivering 50 points, some people might be delivering 75, and some might be only delivering 25 points. But the idea is, overall, you're making the same level of progress every 2 weeks. Like, that's more, I think, for someone in a full-time job than necessarily in game design. But if this was in someone that were doing it as a full-time job, then I guess it would work. It's about designing a game and putting a certain amount and getting to a certain point each time. But yeah, this is about not peaking and troughing. It's about trying to keep it constant, so you're not like taking people close to burnout and then back down again. You're trying to keep it nice and level and nice and constant.
So yeah, what you're talking about, burnout times, that's really good to think about, because there is this traditional crunch time. Okay, we're going to be working really hard now, and so saying, okay, we're going to maintain a more constant, healthy ability to do this, and we're not going. And I get what Alex is saying. That makes a lot of sense, and I think that ties more into the software side of, okay, we're always making stuff. Alex saying, if you're looking at the designer's output overall rather than a single game, it makes a bit more sense. Yeah, do you have anything else to say on this point?
No, I think that's a good point. If you're producing 3 games a year, that is constant output. You're just looking at it over, again, so in Agile, you'd be looking at over a 2-week period, but for game design, you might be doing it over 2 days per period, but this might be applicable to a 6-month or 12-month period. So yeah, it's not a one-to-one relationship, but I think there's a lot that can be learned and sort of applied and useful just to frame how things are done, and just to sort of bring things that are subconscious to a conscious level, which I think is just an interesting thing. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like almost like a sabbatical. There's value in just saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to take some time to not do as much work right now. I'm going to do a bit more reading, a bit more learning about what's going on. And I guess you can go through cycles, but yeah, this is maybe one that I'm not personally, I'm not saying that other people shouldn't accept this, or that I can't accept this in the future. But right now, this is one that I may be struggling with getting 100% on board with as easily as the other ones.
Yeah, I think some of the principles don't tally quite as well, but I think sort of the overall aims of it, and also some of the tools that you use aside it, could be beneficial, and just structure things a bit more.
So you've got continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. So I guess that's talking about in software, commenting on your code and making sure that you don't just do something quickly to rush it out for a micro deadline, and instead you do it properly so that you can add to it.
I think it would be about commenting on code. It's going to be about understanding where your bit of code fits in with everything else, what are the interfaces with the other parts of it. It's going to be about, as I said, not just hacking something together. It's going to be about coding it up properly. And then if you've coded it up properly, I mean, just think of something simple like a website, and you might hard code all the colors. And then someone says, oh, we're changing our brand. And then you've got to go through and change them. Whereas if you did a template at the top, it enhances agility, because then you just have to change the bit of the template and then it folds through the entire website, as opposed to having to do every page individually. So that would be a good design. It's about thinking about how you can ensure, allow changes at a later date. Nothing about designing to change.
And a quick goodbye to Oliver, who has to go and says that they would be very happy to help out playtesting, presumably 2-player things.
Yeah, no, I've got one that I need to finish. I've had a pretty awful last month, and I've literally in the last week only just got myself back together again. So yeah, I'm hoping I can start working on that again soon, and then I can get it out to playtesters.
Oh, going back to this comment here, how does this translate to board games, would you say?
I would say, in terms of a game, it's about a game flow, it's good design. You can't have things that are just disjointed, and so you've got to have that flow in there. But at the same time, you've got to know what you can remove or add into that flow to keep it going without it being disjointed. And technical excellence, I think that's just about understanding the game and the game mechanisms, and then also adding stuff in there just for the sake of it, and understanding what actually works and melds with the game and what doesn't. So I think it's that broader understanding. But yeah, I think it's that focus on the game flow and how it flows to allow you to change it and improve it.
Here is possibly, I don't know, I said another bit was my favorite, but this is my joint favorite statement from here. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. So it's not talking about the simplicity of the game, it's not talking about the user simplicity, it's about your own thing, and saying, hey, I could spend lots of time doing this work, but let's not do all the work if it doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, I joke with my people at work is that I don't do something unless you ask me to do it 3 times, because I don't consider it important until you've done that. It's not literally 3 times if there's something that I know needs to be done, but if there's something that I'm thinking, I think you're going to change your mind in a week and you're not going to want that anymore. It's those sorts of things that are like low priority, nice to haves, to work out where they are. But yeah, it's about working out what actually needs to be done. It's just like, again, another real life example, my thesis, for my PhD or my MD. I got to the point of writing it and I decided to strip out loads of sections because actually I didn't need them. They were not adding significant value. I didn't need them, but by stripping them out, I got them. And the same in game design. I've had the games that I start with a huge amount of complexity, and it's about stripping all of those layers out to get to the core simplicity that you need to have a good game that's engaging and that does what it needs without being overly complex. And so so it absolutely applies to both real life work and game design.
Okay, because you need to be asked 3 times. Janice is like the candy man. I get it. Okay. And again, like the notion of how to simplify not only what the game is, but also to simplify what you need to do and lighten your own workload. I think that is an essential thing that, again, could be a whole conversation in and of itself.
Yeah.
So the penultimate bit is that the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. And I think, is this kind of about, allowing people to be empowered to do stuff themselves?
Yeah, so often in Agile, you use user stories. So rather than saying, the web page shall be blue, it shall have 6 buttons and each of them shall require 2 clicks to operate. You'll say the user wants to be able to interact with the website in multiple ways and have a color scheme that's soothing on the eye kind of thing. And then you let them go off and do it. So you say what the outcome is, what they would like to be, rather than saying specifics of what it should be. And so that's the idea. It has, I think, it works variably depending on the team, but if you've got a good, competent team that works together, then it can work quite well. And it also reduces the upfront work. So rather than writing this huge requirements document, you can get down to something a lot smaller and let the team work it out. And these very fast, rapid reviews, basically every 2 weeks, means that you can have that input at a regular basis, that you haven't got things going off at a tangent and wrong too quickly if something like that does happen. Worst case, you've wasted 2 weeks of work, kind of thing. So you're right. It's very much about empowering and focusing on the output rather than having everything document structured, written down, and fixed at the input.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that this is something that we are lucky that in board games, we are, most teams are self-organizing, and there is a lot of empowerment that is generally given in the board game space. I do want to... is Wren Games self-organizing, or does Janice tell you what to do? Asks.
I tell him when I want to test, and then sometimes he comes. He's been so busy doing the Sensor Ghost app now, which he's absolutely loving. It's like trying to drag him away from the computer to do something else. We each have, he's like, oh, I need the training for Sensor Ghosts, and then I'm like, I need some phase testing, and so it's like we negotiate each other's time.
So no, this was something that I should have flashed up earlier, but when I was talking about how, we could have a slightly more corporate structure, Michael says, yeah, my word choice was not great. It's more professionalism that we could use in some of the board game spaces. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can keep that, we can add some sort of professionalism, and as we get bigger...
It's structure, isn't it? It's all this is providing guidance and an outline structure to operate in without mandating what to do. I mean, there's like on the waterfall, there's like, again, there's 2 different project management. There's like the APM and then there's Prince 2. One of them defines exactly the processes to follow, and the other one says, well, this is best practice, go and implement it, how it works for your business. And it's the same as this. This is like the next level along. It's a framework that says, here are some really good things that you should focus on and by sort of like live by as an ethos, but implement it how it suits your team, your product, your business. But yeah, I say it's a structure. It's a way to reflect on structure.
The final statement is that at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So this is about not just doing things because this is the way you've already always done them, but at some point it doesn't give any indication of how frequent those intervals are. But you should at some point say, hey, okay, not just nose to the floor sort of thing of, okay, we're going to always be working and making sure that our thing is good enough, but maybe take even a week off to say, hey, what could we be doing better? How could we be improving? Because that's then going to improve the next week and every week thereafter.
Yeah, no, it's definitely just thinking, what could I do better? Technically, sort of things like lessons learned is just, it could be at the end of each game, it could be at the end of each prototype cycle. It's whatever, I guess, works best for you. But it's just thinking, what could I do better? And it might be changing something you've always done, or it might be something you've tried new and it hasn't worked, or it might be something that's worked really, really well and you want to investigate how to do it better. So it's not just about how to correct things that didn't go right, but also how can I leverage things that did go well and how can I make them better and use that in the future.
Sorry about that. Just, yeah, thinking about how even this show and reading a book that is about, I mean, for lots of people, if you're working on board games, the teams are likely to be smaller. And quite often it might be one person even working on their own for 90% of it. And then those playtesters, but even that method of how do you playtest and how do you react to those playtests and how do you make playtesters feel valued? Because I don't know if I am one of the two people that Xate felt like it was worth it to bother with, but if not, how could I do a better job next time? Or even if it was, like, how could I do a better job next time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess, talks like this, whether you're listening or talking or reading a book, that's part of it. But of course, when you're a big team, it needs everyone in the team to come together and talk together. And maybe that's where the benefits is of, if playtesters are part of your team, even though they're kind of, it's a weird one because like the whole notion, the fact that how do you recompense playtesters? Like at what point should because it's kind of free labor, which is a problematic thing in some ways, but on another sense, like I'm not like making any money, like I couldn't afford. I would love to pay playtesters like as a de facto thing, but like, do you know what I mean? Like that whole notion of how do we improve that, and this whole notion of just pausing, and I guess that's what this show for me has been a lot about, and but also everyone out there, if you are saying, hey, this person could do a little bit better in this way, hey, Wren Games, you could have done this thing better in a convention. I'm not going to speak for Janice, but certainly for me, if it's like, hey, Bez, you could have done this better at this convention, or you could have made this game better in this way, or you could have interacted better with me as a playtester, you could have done this better, then I am always very much open to feedback and will take the time to try and do the best job that I can, given limitations of energy, health, and time. But it feels kind of weird where here we don't really have a paid team that is always going to be together like a super enfranchised team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessary that you have to have a team. So after a playtesting session, you've got all your feedback. There's nothing stopping you then saying, how was the session go? How did you feel it run? What could I do better to run this better next time? and get the feedback not only on the game, but also on the organisation. So it's 2 separate sets of feedback. So that's one option. And there's also, I think, just stopping and thinking about what you've personally done, either on your own or just chatting with another designer and a mentor or someone that you can bounce ideas off. They might be not involved and say, well, I did this and it didn't work properly. And then just going through the thought process, either on your own or with someone else, writing it down, talking to your cat or whatever it is, and just thinking about how could you do things better. And so I don't think the Sillier Qs campaign went as well as the assembly one. I think I put a lot more effort in. But then again, I had a lot more time for the assembly campaign than I did for the Sillier Qs one. So it kind of makes sense. And so I don't need to have a team to understand how I could improve, but I can still do that analysis. It's I can still sit down and think, how can I do it better next time? What didn't work? What worked well in the first one? What didn't go so well in the second one? How can I make sure that it goes better in the third one? But so you don't need a team for it. It's just self-reflection.
Introspection, self-reflection, and pondering things yourself.
Yeah, and not leaving them unanswered. So it could be things like that are worries. And why am I worried about this? What could I do? What's the positive action I can do as a result of a worry or something you didn't feel went well or something which might be negative? But you shouldn't just focus on the negatives. I think you should focus on what went well, positive, and take that. What positivity can I take from that to take forward as well? So I think it's all about looking at what you did, good and bad, and taking a positive route forward.
Yeah, that's really good points. And I know that Mark Rosewater on one of their podcasts did a show all about feedback, where they talked about how feedback can come from, Mark puts it into 3 sources. So you've got feedback from within yourself, feedback from your team or those that you're working with, and feedback from the public if you're putting something out into the world, like, once your game is actually published or whatever, like. And, obviously there's nuances and variations within each of those, like feedback from someone who hates every single, it's not like, okay, everyone who's giving you feedback in the public is one homogenous thing. You need to look at the nuance within that, but try to get feedback from each of these different places and being honest with yourself. And it is, I guess, if you do have a collaborator or a co-designer or someone that is part of your team, like obviously you've got Stu who is helping you a wee bit with development and playtesting, and having someone regularly like that. And one really valuable thing of having Jason that I chat to once a week, and having that time. And like, when I was at a convention, if you joined me at a convention every night, I would say, this is totally optional, but at the end, I'll kind of do this whole thing. It's how can we do better? What did people enjoy? What did people not enjoy? Like, out of the staff who were kind of helping me, and how could I do a better job for you for next time, kind of thing. And so, as soon as you've got other people that you're working with, that opens up this whole extra avenue. So don't skip over that, I guess. But this has been like really valuable, like going through all of these and thinking about all this mindset. What would you, is there anything else that you would like to say about Agile design in general, or how we should apply it?
There are 3 tools that I think are particularly relevant. The first one is personas. So that's actually sitting down. So this is the planning bit that's probably worth doing. It's about working out who your target market is, who your gamers are, and just sitting down, giving them a face, whether you're drawing it, finding something on the internet, a cartoon or whatever it is, just giving them a face, giving them a name, and just detailing a little bit about them and what their problems are. It's meant to be like pain points, but what do they like in games, or what do they not like in games that you're trying to solve in this current one? So just creating this fictional person, giving them a name and a real thing. And then every time we're designing the game, let's say we've got I introduced Mary and John. So it was like, what would Mary think about this game as it is? If I made this chain, how would this impact Mary? And so you're trying to always relate the game design back to what you're designing it for, not for what you want, but what the people are playing it want, which hopefully is what you want too. But it tries to stop you get too hung up over your personal opinion and tries to put you into different prospects of different people. And you'd like, if you've got 3 or 4 target markets, you might be trying to aim at sort of, I don't know, young adults, adults and maybe with people in retirement. And so you'd have a couple, maybe at least one, maybe 2 personas for each of them. And then just every time you're doing things, try and think about them, and it just makes everything a bit more real. The other one is user stories, which I'd say yes and no, but it would be more about, again, trying to say with each mechanism what you're trying to achieve with it and have an understanding of why it's there. And I wouldn't say do this down to the detail, but just like the bigger things. What is it trying to achieve? Is it trying to add randomness? Is it trying to add story and thematic? Is it trying to give control? But maybe I'm really bad often for writing some of these things down, but one of the best advice I've often given is when you write things down, you are almost making a contract with yourself to then do it. And by writing it down, you're making it real. And so I wouldn't, we just might just be like the 3 things that makes the game your game. What are you trying to achieve with them? And then the final one is a Kanban board, which essentially is a Trello board, where you'd have a backlog, all the things that you plan to do, the things that you're going to do, you're planning to work on in the short term, in the sprint. So it might be that this is what I'm focusing on now. The things that you are actually working on physically now, the things that are in test or review, and the things that are done. And you're just moving it through. And so it's like a complex to-do list that you can see the status of everything as you're going through, and you just move all the tasks as it goes through. And so it's called a Kanban board, and Trello is an example of it that can be used as a Kanban board. And I think that could work quite well for game design as well. Maybe for the bigger ones, or it's just a way to keep track of what you're doing, you're planning to do, and a way just to organize your thoughts without doing detailed planning, because you can do it very quickly, very easy, just a quick sentence. And it just also gives you that feedback of progress as well, which is great. So those are the other 3 things that I think are relevant that are used in Agile that could be benefit to provide structure for game design.
With a Kanban board, is that necessarily a digital thing, or is that a way of using something that could be a physical whiteboard or chalkboard even?
I guess you could do the columns on a whiteboard, but yeah, they're quite, I guess, more popular digitally because you can just drag and drop the tasks as you move them along, and you can add comments and notes and stuff to them. So you might be something that you've decided to ditch, and you want to write down why you ditched it. But yeah, I'm sure it could be a physical whiteboard or chalkboard as well would work. And it's just a slightly more complex to-do list, but it gives this nice feeling of flow as you go across of succeeding.
Okay, and so yeah, say what Kanban boards, as in the board game Kanban. But you're saying that Trello is an example of the style of thing. And are there other examples of software that allow you to create a Kanban board?
Oh, there's tons of them, but Trello's free. It's basically just different columns that you can have that you can pick and drag your little like sticky notes and drag them along. Is essentially what it is, and it generally has a backlog, an in process, a testing, review, and a complete column in general. And that's like the simple structure. But yeah,
makes lots of sense. And the personas that you're talking about sound a little bit more detailed than a simple psychographic of the Timmy, Tammy, Jenny, Spike style, or whether it's or would you say that they are almost the same?
They're quite
persona and a psychographic.
The persona is to ground you, I think, during your development process, and you do it once, and it's just to ground you and keep you coming back to your core principles. That doesn't mean they can't change. You might decide that you've changed your audience, so I think the persona is to ground, whereas a Kanban board is to organize. And so, yeah, We've tried that one. But then there's various ones out there. But maybe Kanban board, make it into a board game. That'd be interesting. You're doing tasks and moving it across. But interesting. So I can say assembly was based on a project management of a customer changing their requirements mid-project. That's the basis of assembly. Is that you're trying to build something and then the customer changes their mind and everything changes, but they can't change the things that have already been done, which is why you've got your locked ones, and then you go through it again and then they suddenly change their mind again, and then if you run out of cards, you run out of money kind of thing. But I didn't think that was quite as interesting as a deadly virus on a spaceship. But that's the foundations of assembly is a customer changing requirements mid-project multiple times.
So I Just Cry, Janice turns it into a board game. So, one person.
Sorry, it's not high on my agenda.
Now, as we go into the recap, we've talked about so much today. We've talked about silly things like Rain and games that we were playing, and Fruit Ninja, Zombie Tsunami, Presents, and Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, and Pigeons, and Soups and Stews, and School Kids. We talked about playtesting early and just thinking about what's going on. I will also link in the comments to this one other place that seems to be a little bit more updated than the other place that was stopped being updated 4 years ago. Yeah, for sure, it's about valuing the people over how you do those things. It's about valuing like the output over the how it's done. But at the same time, you know, as we discovered at the end, being introspective and thinking about how you're making things, and maybe you can make those things better. It's about making games that work and making them as quickly as you can rather than writing so much. It's about working with people and just continuing to change and go through the principles yourself and think for yourself how these can all apply. And we went through them all about satisfying customers, basically keeping on doing things, iterating quickly, about changing things, even if you're like 90% of the way through development, making big sweeping changes. It's never too late to make a really big change.
I guess there's two points on there. If the big sweeping change is going to significantly improve the product to the point that it's worth delaying release, then it's worth doing. But the other one is worth saying, as it actually save that for version 2 or an expansion or something else. So it really, that one's going to be a sweeping change. But I think if it's ready, then definitely go for it.
And that's the point. Like sometimes, hey, you know what? If we invert all the scoring and then do a bit more design, that could be a much better game. But maybe the game that you have now is worth publishing. But think to yourself, how good is it? But that could be like the follow-up or something potentially.
Yeah, but don't be scared to make change late.
I think that's be scared. But I kind of feel like we should try to make each thing that we release as good as we possibly can. And we talked about how here it's not like a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Literally, you can make a change in a second, and even halfway through a playtest with other people, maybe this really good idea comes to you. Just make that change literally within, say, hey, we're going to abandon this game, we're going to, or totally change these rules halfway through. And think about the final viability of this, the game as product, and trust the people that are doing this stuff. If you're working with other people, maybe this applies a little bit more to when you're working with graphic designers or artists, or I know not everyone works with artists or whatever, but so lots of people who are self-publishing might do. And whoever you're working with, there needs to be some trust around here, and you need to make sure that everyone's motivated. And this the whole notion that how do you motivate all these people, that could be a topic in and of itself. we talked about face-to-face playtesting, and we talked about the value of videotaping this, as said by Matt Leacock and Paul Grogan, saying, that we can do so much more now. And I know you had a lot of success with online stuff even before COVID. That, yes, it's all about the games that we keep making. It's about not burning out. Think about, are you going to be able to work on this in a year's time, or are you just going to be burning yourself out? Do you want to do this as a lifetime? And try to make good stuff as much as you can. And this is the other bit that I really love, like the art of not doing work and simplicity. It's not about simplicity in development. It's not about simplicity in the game design. It's about simplicity in your own style of working, of how do you reduce the workload? How do you make sure that this thing that someone's telling you to do actually needs to be done? And have some autonomy and be introspective and think about what you're doing. And then we talked about the personas, psychographics, user stories, and the Kanban board. And so that is everything we've talked about. If you would like to check me out, stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, twitter.com/stuffbybez, where you can see most of my stuff, instagram.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbez. I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. youtube.com/stuffbez for the old episodes, and stuffbybez.com/discord. Feel free to join the Discord for share pictures of cats or games you've been playing recently. And if you want to chat more about this topic or anything else to do with, basically just join and have some respectful conversations going on. And Janice, how would you like to be found?
You can probably, the way I answer most is Twitter. So there's twitter.com/Dravin, DRAWVIN, gets straight to me, or /Wren Games. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and websites up. But if you want something, Twitter probably is the best way if you want to chat about something.
And I would like to say thank you, everyone. Obviously, major thanks to Janice. And thank you, everyone in the comments, for being brilliant and respectful and having so much valuable chat along to this topic. So now it's the moments where I say, over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything, Gondley, if you want to. So do you want to share something that you're looking forward to, or maybe hopes or ambitions, or maybe something that you're excited to do, or maybe it's trivial or important, or it's just a boring fact that you have 2 eyes, which, if that's all that you can share, then go for it. What do people want to share? Janice, are you working on anything exciting that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, I kind of, it'll probably sound really dull, but so Oliver mentioned earlier, I've just started freelancing, so I've just joined a pre-seed startup, which means that it hasn't got any investors yet. It's really early stage, and it's really exciting to be part of a company at such a young stage and being able to influence the direction. I'm having direct influence on the design of the web portal and the mobile app and everything like that, and it's like a complete change to what I was doing before, even though it's technically the same role, but it's just in a totally different environment, and it's I'm feeling much more energized than I was several months ago. So that's my exciting. But it means my board game is going a bit to the side because I'm spending a bit too much time and focusing on that because it's all new and shiny and exciting. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment.
So shiny and new, like someone might say. But I just realised that I've not put on the streams. I need to add that to the streams for the next few days. But next streams, if you want to find them out, look at stuffbybez.com/streams. Oh, that's so cute. And yeah, tonight we are going to be playing something. Hope to see a couple of you there. If we get enough people that are definitely coming on, I will play something based on What Were You Thinking, also known as Hive Mind by Richard Garfield. If we get fewer stuff, then we'll do something more multiplayer solitaire. But that's at 8 p.m. UK time tonight. And tomorrow I am going to be doing my first ever playthrough, which is where, oh, there it is, under a big pile of games. How do I, oh, Imperial Settlers Rolling Right, so I'll be doing a wee playthrough of that. And yes, I need to, I just looked at my calendar and I saw it wasn't there, and so, yeah, I just added it literally right now. So, yeah, please check through the streams. And so, other people, if you've got anything, Gavin says, really interesting ideas. I'm looking forward to having their kids choose their favorite games for a review that is being done. That sounds like lots of fun. And so, yes, exactly. I am very agile. Oh, thank you. Yep. So, if no one else has anything else to say, what is your cat's name, Janice?
This is Kiki. Kiki.
Oh,
have you heard Kiki's delivery service? It was
yes.
My youngest wasn't that great at speech, but it's one of the few, we came up with a few names, and it was one of the ones she could say. So we named her Kiki, and they're both obsessed with Studio Ghibli movies. So, and she's sucking her paw right now. But she's got something about 8 months old, so she's still a kitten.
Oh. Well, so it might be just me on my own. So it sounds like I will be doing some sort of more multiplayer solitaire words game. We played a bit of Nano Muckle and Mini Muckle recently, so maybe we will play Balanceable. I've not played Balanceable in a while. Quite fancy playing that. If other people have other things, then can. Other than that, the only thing left to do is to say bye-bye. Feel free to share, spread the word. If you are in Twitch, then hang around and join in the raid for Idle Michael's stream. And do you have anything you want to quickly say before we sing?
No. thanks for coming and listening. And I'll let Kiki sing.
So, bye, bye. Bye, bye, this is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye.
Bye.